About to get into fantasy week 13. What's going on? Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday morning for us. Please hit the like button on the video. Please hit the subscribe button and check back a little bit later today. If you're watching live on Thursday, it's 2 p.m. Eastern. We will have a live Q&A where we take your questions and help you set your lineups. All right, let's get rocking and rolling here on fantasy football today. We have got 7 AFC home games to take a look at. Joe Burrow. Is he playing poorly right now? It depends on who you ask. Can he have a big game against the Chargers? Any Bills running backs or Patriots running backs this week? Probably not. Any Saquon Barkley this week? See if maybe you want to avoid him. Can Chase Claypool keep it going? We'll answer those questions as we take a look at 7 games on today's show. And we got a lot of Thursday night updates for you as well. So we'll get to that in just a moment. I'm Adam Azer with Heath Cummings and Jamie Eisenberg. What's up? Hey, Jamie. Morning.
Good morning.
Whew. How you feeling about this week? Exciting week?
You don't say good morning to Heath?
I already did. Heath and I talked for like 10 minutes already. Hey, Heath.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm feeling about this week. I just tweeted like there's a list of long guys that I don't really feel comfortable with how I'm ranking them. I don't, and not even including Elijah Moore in that, who I know we're going to argue about in just a minute. Mm-hmm. But I'm really struggling with more guys this week, it seems like, than normal.
Give me a few. I'll tell you where to rank them.
There's 3 quarterbacks: Russell Wilson, Taysom Hill, and Joe Burrow.
I would go Burrow, Wilson, Hill. You're welcome.
I currently have it Wilson or Hill, Wilson, Burrow. So you're complete opposite. Perfect. Good job.
I read 2 articles about Burrow this week. One on CBS, one on ESPN.
One about not being a good prospect.
He wasn't. Chris Trapasso on CBS, and I think who was it? I'll look it up on ESPN. So both analysts watched the game and said Joe Burrow played great last week. So I think his numbers are not reflecting that he's playing pretty well lately.
Oh, you can play great and not be a good fantasy quarterback.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're running the ball so much. I guess
he's averaging 28 pass attempts in wins this season. And he's had a couple games where he throws a 75-yard touchdown pass to Jamar Chase. And so that's okay. But I just think the way this Chargers defense is set up, just begging you to run against them. The Bengals will be more than happy to do that.
Last thing on that game, that's actually the first game we'll look at. I think it's one of the more interesting games. Asante Samuel, the Chargers, when they've had both of their starting cornerbacks healthy, Davis and Samuel, they've been terrific against the pass. When they've been missing either one of them, I think there was one game they maybe missed both, but when they've been missing one of them, they've struggled a little bit. So that's something we'll keep an eye on. He's in the concussion protocol, missed last week's game. Jamie, give me the player you love. Give me the start of the week.
Elijah Mitchell. Love the setup for him. Coming off the game that he had last week, no Deebo Samuel. 27 carries, 5 catches. You're looking at a Seattle defense that has to be exhausted after playing Monday night with all the snaps that they played and they typically play, but cross-country trip. And so I was surprised when I was looking at the start percentages for these guys. And Mitchell was he's going to obviously creep up higher, but he was below 50% last week. And when I started writing this on Wednesday, it was in the 60s. So I don't know if people are hesitant about it. Did the radio show this morning, somebody was asking me to defend it. Like it was, you're sitting Elijah Mitchell. I think he's going to have a top 5 week. I'm starting him over Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara. He's in my top 5. So
Madison?
No, Madison is in a better spot. Madison. I mean, Mitchell's. I think close. At least for the way I approach this, closer to a more obvious start than the guys I typically use. Madison to me would be much more of a must-start guy, just knowing what he's done.
Okay. Heath, how about you? Player you love?
I'll stay at the running back position, and I'll go with Jamaal Williams. This Lions offense, as we thought they might, has just centered their offense around running back touches. And that's partially because they don't have any good wide receivers, and TJ Hawkinson's not taking the leap they'd hoped. But I think you'll see 20-plus touches for Jamaal Williams. I wouldn't be surprised if 5 or 6 of those are catches. I said earlier in the week he came out at like number 7 in my projections, and I'd kind of moved him down to 13 or 14. But then I started looking at it, and I was like, do I really need to rank Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley or David Montgomery or Najee Harris ahead of Jamaal Williams? No, I don't. So I moved Jamaal Williams back up, and he's now number 9, just 1 spot behind Elijah Mitchell.
I think the name that jumps out there is Najee Harris. And people might say, how could you consider starting Jamaal Williams over Najee Harris? So I get it, but explain your thought process there.
I'm just like, as bad as the Lions are, I'm not sure that the Steelers are going to be any better this week. In fact, I think their implied point totals might be exactly the same. The Lions have a much better offensive line, so I think Williams is going to be more efficient in the running game. And I wouldn't necessarily expect Najee Harris to do more in the passing game.
And Harris, you talked about Joe Burrow's splits, pass attempts, and wins and losses. Harris, you look at his carries in wins and losses. When they were winning, I think they won 4 in a row and they had a tie. Wins and ties. He gets like 20 plus carries every game. He doesn't come close to that in the losses, at least the last 2, but they got blown out. But all right, that's an interesting one. And Pittsburgh, Baltimore, that's going to be kind of an interesting game because usually that's a defensive struggle, but I'm not quite sure what those defenses have this year. Let's go to players to avoid. Jamie, who are you sitting this week?
Joe Burrow. It's one of those situations where he's a good quarterback. The Bengals are playing fantastic, but this is the run funnel of all run funnels against the Los Angeles Chargers. And I know, Adam, you keep saying that they're talking about being better against the run, that they're hoping to get guys back that'll help them against the run. They can't stop the run. And so Joe Mixon's just on a tear right now. So I don't expect Burrow's fantasy production to change dramatically. I think his ceiling is going to be around 22 points, so he can still be a low-end starter for you. And I don't know if you necessarily need to make a transaction. Like I kind of agree with Heath that I wouldn't be surprised if Taysom Hill is better, but I don't think I'm dropping somebody to pick up Taysom Hill to start him over Joe Burrow unless I have the roster spots to play with.
I think just to defend my honor here, when they have Justin Jones and Linval Joseph healthy, they've been very good against the run. But that's not going to preclude me from starting Mixon or anything like that. And I don't know what Joseph's status will be, but they truly did improve when Jones came back from missing almost all of the season.
But I saw something, and I don't remember where it was, but they are running a lot of light boxes this year, just kind of begging teams to run against them. And it may be when they're fully healthy, they can defend the run better out of those sets. But I don't think this is a situation where the Chargers are trying to necessarily be good against the run. I think they're one of those teams, analytically minded, that knows that it's much, much better if you can get the other team to run the ball against you more than they pass it.
Right. Okay. And who are you sitting, Heath?
I'm trying to sit T. Higgins, and it's kind of attached to Joe Burrow. It's kind of attached to just the way that we think that game will go. I mean, we're going to break down the whole Bengals-Chargers game before we even get to it, but yeah. I don't think that the Chargers are going to put up a big number against the Bengals defense, and I don't think that the Bengals are going to have a great reason to throw a ton of passes. And so I think Higgins is more of a boom-bust number 3 wide receiver this week. I'd still start him over the guys like Mike Williams and such, but he's not currently in my top 30.
So you'd start Elijah Moore over him?
I would start Elijah Moore over him.
Would you start Devontae Smith at the Jets or T. Higgins?
I have Devontae Smith ahead of T. Higgins as well.
Hey, Jamie, you like Higgins a little more. Number 2 wide receiver?
Borderline. I think I saw somebody post this. I don't know where it was. Maybe somebody on Twitter, so I apologize for not referencing it. But I think in the games where T. Higgins has been healthy, he has more targets than Jamar Chase for the season.
Interesting.
So it's not like Joe Burrow is ignoring him completely, but it kind of goes hand in hand with Burrow. I don't disagree with Heath. I don't think you should necessarily look at last week's game and say, okay, this is who T. Higgins is going to be rest of the season. It was his first touchdown since week 2. He's been, for the most part, I don't want to say disappointing, but just kind of leaving you a little bit, empty with what your expectations were. So it's not a slam dunk, but it's not a lot of great receivers once you get past about 25, 26 guys. So I think he's still in that conversation.
Something to consider for
I start more Elijah Moore personally.
Okay. Something to consider for T. Higgins, his ADOT. And I can't tell you what his ADOT's going to be. But in 3 of his last 4 games, he has 78 or more yards. He has 97, 78, and 114 yards. His ADOT, average depth of target, so basically where Joe Burrow is throwing the ball, throwing it deep, 16 yards or more in all 3 of those games. That is extremely high for an average depth of target. Those are his only 3 games all season with an ADOT higher than 12 yards. So he's been used in 3 of the last 4 games downfield a lot, and he has come through. that makes him a pretty volatile wide receiver, most likely. Tough to trust. The Chargers don't give up a lot of big pass plays, but neither do some of the other teams that Higgins has had success against recently, like Pittsburgh. So a lot to think about.
I'm really wondering, and I don't think I can find this in time. I'm sure it's somewhere, and I expect we'll get him. Maybe somebody in the chat will know where it is. But I'd be curious with the way the Chargers are playing defense this year, what their average ADOT allowed is to wide receivers.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would think that they would rank towards the bottom of the league in that, but I don't know for sure. So I wouldn't want to. I mean, it's just kind of a guess.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I do know that if you want to have fun and take part in these starter sit discussions, you can do it all season long at cbssports.com/start-sit. Play the FFT Start Sit Challenge. Each week, answer 10 start sit questions to win a customized Trophy Smack Championship belt with your name engraved. And the overall winner for the season wins $1,000 and a guest appearance on the podcast. One question this week is Hunter Renfrow, Darnell Mooney, or Travis Kelce. So who's going to score the most in half PPR? Renfrow, Mooney, or Kelce, guys?
I mean, it's Kelce. Come on.
All right. It's Kelce. I didn't write the question. All right. Go to cbssports.com/start-sit to play. I bet Schrager wrote it. Schrager. Mom. By the way, Spotify. If you have Spotify, they do this very cool thing. The Spotify Wrapped. 2021 Spotify Wrapped is out. Be sure to tweet us how many minutes you spent streaming FFT on Spotify in 2021. Okay, we got a ton of news and notes. We're going to start with the Thursday stuff. Taysom Hill is going to start tonight against Dallas. So we'll kick it off right there. Jamie, where'd you rank Taysom Hill?
I think 14, but he's definitely in the streaming conversation. And again, if you want to start him over Joe Burrow or Russell Wilson, I certainly understand that sentiment. Hopefully he's the guy we saw in the 4 games that he started last year. And I know that seems like saying you want to watch paint dry because it wasn't pretty, but he got you fantasy production because he runs. And so 22 or more fantasy points in 3 or 4 games. So I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful that that's the guy, and his foot is okay and there's no issues. And he throws the ball with a little bit of success, certainly to Alvin Kamara.
You expect Kamara to play?
I do. I'm hopeful. There's no certainty, but I'm hopeful.
Okay, Heath. So I think you're probably in about the same boat with Taysom Hill, right?
Borderline top 12 quarterback. I would start him over Burrow. The one I really struggle with is Russell Wilson. But he's my favorite streamer. So if you're streaming, that's who I'd stream with.
Carson Wentz or Taysom Hill?
Taysom Hill.
Derek Carr or Taysom Hill?
Derek Carr.
Okay. So Kamara. Obviously, if Kamara doesn't play, we're going to love Mark Ingram. But if Kamara does play, does he crack your top 12?
Not me.
Jamie, top 12, Kamara?
He's borderline. I again, it's more of a hope than it is a logic thing. I think Heath broke it down pretty well. I'm sure you guys talked about this on Wednesday. He definitely mentioned on HQ that with Taysom Hill running and what we saw in the involvement for Kamara in the passing game last season with him and the presence of Mark Ingram, you just don't know how many, I don't want to say high-level touches or traditional touches, because I still think he's going to be the lead running back and hopefully get those opportunities that we're used to seeing, but it could be limited. So just keep that in mind. So if you want to start Jamaal Williams over him, Boston Scott over him, I'm starting Elijah Mitchell over him. And Boston Scott would be if he's by himself in Philadelphia's back.
Right, that's a little. I don't know that we can do that right now.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. Yes, you can't take that into account with the Eagles guys. You're right, because it's Thursday night game. Right. But if you want to start Jamaal Williams over him, based on what we know, you want to start, take a risk on Sony Michel, based on if Darrell Henderson misses another practice. I get it. I would still start Alvin Kamara though. I'm not going to get cute with those things.
Okay. And Amari Cooper is going to play. By the way, both Saints offensive tackles are questionable. That's a big deal. But Amari Cooper is going to play tonight. Heath, did he crack your top 30?
He did crack my top 30. He's right in the Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I have no idea what to do with these guys' range. Borderline number 2 wide receivers. I think the interesting thing is if all 3 Cowboys wide receivers are healthy, who's going to see the most Lattimore? I would assume it's not going to be Lamb because he's going to go into the slot the most, but I also think Cooper is probably going to go in the slot more than Gallup does. So I don't hate his chances of getting into the end zone. And I think he's probably going to get 6 or 7 targets, maybe 8. So he's a borderline start. I'd like it if I had 2 receivers better, 3 receivers better, but I probably don't.
Would you guys start Myles Gaskin or Amari Cooper?
Gaskin.
Yeah, Gaskin.
All right. The rest of the news and notes. Antonio Brown is going to be out at least the next 2 weeks. Seattle signed Adrian Peterson to the practice squad. You can interrupt me if I'm wrong, but I assume that we don't have any interest in adding Adrian Peterson to our fantasy football teams.
I don't get it. Why?
I don't know. They need help. Daniel Jones's neck injury. This is the weirdest thing. They're talking about, no, as of right now, it's not considered season ending. And then at the same time, he's expected to practice all week. So which Giants quarterback do you think starts this week as of right now?
Phil Simms.
We're projecting Glennon. And actually, I like Saquon a little bit more if it is Glennon.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was the benefit. I don't like anybody else more, but.
Okay. And yeah, Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard did not practice. Neither did cornerback Adoree Jackson. Devontae Parker is practicing this week. It doesn't mean he will play, but he's had a very underrated season. When you look at his competition, he's faced the Bills twice, the Patriots, the Raiders. They're really good against wide receivers. He tore up the Colts, the only good matchup he's had. He's had 7 or more targets in every game. Don't sleep on Devontae Parker.
There's only one thing that's beat him so far.
And that is Jacoby Brissett.
No, his shoulder.
Oh, his shoulder, yeah. Philip Lindsay is going to have an opportunity for a bigger role. Okay, we'll see. Jalen Hurts looks like he's going to play. Miles Sanders making progress. Eagles optimistic for center Jason Kelce. J.D. McKissick has a concussion, so we'll see if he can get out of the protocol by Sunday at Las Vegas. DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray. We just don't. Do we know anything right now? I mean, it seems up in the air with those two guys.
I'm under the assumption that they're playing, so I think that's the way you have to approach it right now. But again, if you're concerned about Kyler and you have Taysom Hill, that could be a tough decision you have to make tonight.
Yeah, that's tough, and it's really, really tough for me with Hopkins and Cooper. Like, I'd obviously start Lamb over him, and I think if it was Hopkins and Gallup, I'd probably just try to wait it out with Hopkins. But Cooper's a real, because you don't even know for sure how much Cooper's going to play.
Right.
Yeah, I'd play Cooper.
All right, Pat Freiermuth practiced in full. He just needs to clear the concussion protocol, but that's a good sign. Darrell Henderson and Odell Beckham both missed practice. Sean McVay sounding optimistic about both Henderson and Beckham. New England safety Kyle Duggar is on the reserve COVID list ahead of this showdown at Buffalo. Cole Kmet and Allen Robinson both missed practice. I'm guessing we don't expect Robinson. Do we expect Kmet?
I would hope so. I mean, they've had plenty of time, so just keep that in mind.
Darren Waller missed practice, and Foster Moreau, as of yesterday, was the most added player in CBS leagues. But another big thing here is Carl Nassib for the Raiders. He is week to week with a knee injury, and that's the strength of Las Vegas's defense, that pass rush. Chase Edmonds could be back next week. DeAndre Swift could miss multiple weeks, according to ESPN. Carolina cornerback Dante Jackson out for the season. That's a tough hit for IDP leagues. That guy's a tackling machine. And that's pretty much all I've got. So here's a new segment. I'm going to look at, we got 7 games we're looking at today. I'm going to give you a quick question. We can spend up to 30 seconds. That's all we have to do. Just a quick overview of the game for players that might be kind of, on the fence in terms of whether or not we start them. Here we go. Chargers at Bengals. Is this Mike Williams week?
I mean, every week is Mike Williams week. It's week to do what?
To be good.
Are you going to ask us any questions we could possibly answer with any certainty?
That wouldn't be fun.
Okay.
It's time to sit.
No. Yeah. I was annoyed that I had to start him. I have to start him one league. Who is the best? Okay, Washington, Las Vegas. Who is the best quarterback in this game? Washington, Las Vegas.
Derek Carr.
The one facing the Washington defense.
Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Chase Claypool or Devontae Freeman? Who's a better flex?
I'll take Claypool and PPR.
Ooh, I know I have them really, really close. I'll go Claypool and PPR as well.
Okay, Baltimore. We'll talk about this in a bit, but Baltimore, I say it every week now. They basically give up the most big plays to wide receiver or in the passing game.
It's so weird because that's all they give up. Like
yes, they give up very few catches, but the most yards per catch to wide receiver.
Right. They just every game they have one or two complete breakdowns in the secondary, and other than that, they're pretty good defense.
Great run defense too. All right, Giants-Dolphins. Who's the best running back in this game?
Barkley.
Barkley is the best running back in this game. Gaskin is the better fantasy running back.
Heath, you're starting Barkley over Gaskin?
I am starting Barkley over Gaskin. Right. They were back-to-back when I had Daniel Jones as the quarterback. Barkley moved up like 5 spots when I put Glennon in.
I believe the Dolphins' last 5 weeks have been the best fantasy defense against opposing running backs.
Yeah, they've have not allowed a touchdown and something like 3.8 yards per carry to running backs.
Yeah, and now you have potentially Mike Glennon. Good luck.
Why is Glennon better for Barkley?
He's not as mobile. I would expect additional running back targets, and he's not going to run the ball 7 or 8 times. So those are more plays where Barkley could get carries or receptions.
I think the concern would be is less time of possession if this offense is worse with Glennon, which it could be better. But if the way the Dolphins defense is playing just as a whole, if Glennon stinks, which is highly likely, then he's not going to be on the field as much.
This is a spotlight game for sure. And we'll see if Daniel Jones.
Spotlight for who?
So a spotlight game?
I'm just kidding. It was a joke. It was a joke. Yeah. It's a terrible game. Daniel, I don't know that he's going to run. I mean, every time he runs, he gets hurt. Concussion, neck strain. All right, Denver, Kansas City. Is this game competitive? Denver, Kansas City.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Chiefs pretty much never blow anybody out.
Except the Raiders 3 weeks ago.
Well, it's the Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah, I would guess it will be.
All right, it's big for the Denver running backs. It needs to be competitive. And New England Buffalo. Who is the best running back in this game?
Damien Harris.
Yeah, I have Singletary projected the highest in PPR, but I moved Damien Harris ahead of him. I would really like it if I could. For the most part, I would really like it if I could just avoid this game. I mean, if you have Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs, you have to start him, but I don't want to be a part of this game.
Okay, and then finally, Indianapolis and Houston. T.Y. Hilton magic this week?
Yes, he scores again.
You know that I'm not going to rank it that way, but probably.
Jamie,
do you know what his numbers are against this team?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I mean, I know generally that he's amazing against them, but I don't. Do you have specific numbers?
Yeah, let me get it. Hold on. It's 19 games played against the Texans, and in those 19 games, he has this I do know, which is amazing: 160 targets against the Texans.
Wow.
For 19 games in his career against the Texans, 101 catches, 1,798 yards, and 11 touchdowns on 160 targets.
It's amazing. Almost 1,800 yards in 19 games. By the way, I said earlier that I was reading on ESPN about Joe Burrow. It was Mike Tannenbaum who covered. He was at the game. He covered it, and he said Burrow looked great last week. So I just wanted to clarify that.
T.Y. Hilton had more yards in week number 6 against the Texans when he caught 4 passes for 80 yards than he has in the rest of his games this year combined.
He also has not played more than 61% of the snaps in any game.
Now, he's not a full-time player, and I don't think they're going to throw maybe but 25 or 30 passes. So it really just depends on them just telling Michael Pittman, sorry, we're going to throw the ball to T.Y. Hilton this game because it's the Texans.
And
I think that's kind of what has to happen for him to be good.
I think Wentz threw 20 or 21 passes the last time they played. That's really low. Okay,
maybe they'll do that again.
One rankings dispute. The only one I'm going to bring up because it's a game that we're looking at tomorrow. Actually, there are a lot of AFC home games this week, but we'll look at it tomorrow. It's Jets hosting the Eagles, and it's Elijah Moore. Now, Dave and Jamie are in agreement here that Moore is just outside the top 30, whereas Heath has Elijah Moore 19th against the Philadelphia Eagles. So Heath, make the case for Elijah Moore.
I was going to say, I'm definitely the weird one here. Dave and Jamie are aligned with the industry, and Elijah Moore for a month was the best wide receiver in fantasy. And then last week, Zach Wilson comes back and he has a bad game where he scores 9 PPR fantasy points, but gets a 33% target share. And I just expect that he's going to see a third of the team's targets. They're not going to throw 24 passes again, which is probably going to mean a 10 target game, which makes him a must start wide receiver for me. You look at him, like the one I think it seems outlandish probably is him versus DK Metcalf. He's scored more fantasy points since week 5 than DK Metcalf has.
Who hasn't?
Well, DK Metcalf's the number 22 wide receiver since week 5. That includes some of his good games.
Okay. Some of his Geno Smith games.
Right. So, I mean, he's like as bad as he was and even not playing for a while, what he did over that month puts him at wide receiver 19 since week 5.
Okay, Jamie, you're sitting Elijah Moore is outside your top 30.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to in a 2 receiver league. In a 3 receiver league, I'm still starting him. And I have a tough decision in one of my leagues between him and T. Higgins. It's not so much about what his target share opportunity is and his quarterback play. It's about his matchup. I mean, Darius Slay has erased every top receiver that he's come against for the most part this season when he's been placed on that guy. And so will he be the guy on Elijah Moore? I don't know. I don't know if he's going to get that respect. I don't know if Corey Davis coming back, if he does, changes things at all. But I would imagine if you're Darius Slay and you're looking at the Jets offense, you're saying, I'm going to try and take away and shadow Elijah Moore. And, you know, the numbers bear it out that number 1 receivers against his team for the majority of the season have been terrible.
I don't think Slay, in fact, I can tell you, he did not shadow Kenny Golladay last week. I think a lot of times he stays at left cornerback. So that just keep that in mind. I'm not sure that how much time he'll spend on Elijah Moore. But I really don't know.
I know Elijah Moore has only been in the slot about 15% of the snaps, but I think he's moved around quite a bit.
I'm looking at the chart from last game. He had no targets on the right side of the field, which is where Slay would be. He had 2 targets on the left side, and most of it was between the numbers. So I don't know how much Slay he'll see. It's just a guess at this point. All righty. Chargers at Bengals. Stat of the game, number 1. It's the only stat of the game because the other one is about T. Higgins and his A-dot, and you know that. So, stat of the game. The last 4 quarterbacks to face the Chargers have had passer ratings above 101. That would be Hurts, Cousins, Roethlisberger, and Bridgewater. So they have not really been very good against the pass lately, and that does coincide with the cornerback injuries that I mentioned. But you've already made it very clear that you are trying to avoid Joe Burrow this week. So I guess just to wrap that conversation up, Jamie, who are some of the quarterbacks that you would start over Burrow that people might be like, oh, interesting?
I mean, there's not much. You know, it's Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr are probably the only names that weren't drafted ahead of him. But I don't disagree with Heath. I think if you want to take a chance on Taysom Hill, then that's certainly suitable. Based on what the hope is for Hill having to do more with his legs, and what Burrow is going to do more handing off to Joe Mixon. If you're in the Joe Burrow camp, you want Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense to show up and get a big lead and force Burrow to throw. And we've seen a couple times this season. I know, like the Jacksonville game on Thursday night, there was that instance, that comes to mind for sure, where they were chasing points and he had to throw more. So I think there's an opportunity there for Burrow to still be good, but I just don't see him scoring more than what his average has been, which is about 22 fantasy points when he's been good.
Do you have Wilson ahead of him?
I do.
Yeah. I do
All
too.
right, so in this game, it's Mixon and Eckler are must starts. Jamar Chase, is he still a must start given his recent poor stretch?
Yes.
Yep.
But he's not a top 10 guy anymore.
Okay. So you've already debated T. Higgins. Jamie's got him around 25th. Heath has him, I think, around 35th. And what else in this game? Keenan Allen is a must start. I don't want to just short. Oh, we should talk about Justin Herbert here. So you guys have him top 7. Heath has him 5th. Jamie 7th. Dave 7th. Is that a reflection of your confidence in Herbert or the state of the quarterback position at the moment?
The state of the quarterback position. He's been very frustrating. This offense has been frustrating. It's like they have an identity crisis at times. If they were let him play like he should be playing, which is open up the offense and rely on your passing game, which includes Austin Eckler. Doesn't mean get away from him by any stretch. Then I think he would be an easy top 5 fantasy quarterback. But you just don't know what you're going to get week to week with him. Like 2 games ago, run more. You can do it. You don't have to run for 90 yards like you did against the Steelers, but run. If that guy shows up, then you're going to get maybe top 3 quarterback, maybe number 1.
The ADOT is so low lately for much of the year, I think I'd say. And the offensive line just stinks. That's kind of what it is. It's like sometimes he's just under so much pressure. But okay, Herbert or Hurts?
Herbert right now. Hurts. The ankle makes me nervous.
Yeah, that one's tough, but I'll go Herbert too.
Okay. Start Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Did we ask Mike Williams or T. Higgins? I think I know the answer, but Mike Williams or T. Higgins?
T. Higgins. I mean, you talk about a good corner. Chidobe Awuzie has been great. Awuzie, excuse me, has been great. You look at some of the guys he's faced. Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson. He gave a touchdown, but 2 catches, 24 yards. He got beat up by Devontae Adams, by Marquise Brown, and Deontay Johnson. Those guys were good, but they were frustrating. He frustrated them. So it's, I think you're talking about those guys get a lot more attention than what Mike Williams is getting right now.
Yeah, I've got Higgins and Williams, I think back to back or 2 spots apart, but I would definitely start Higgins over Williams.
Would you start Patriots running back over Mike Williams?
In non-PPR, I would absolutely start Damian Harris over him for sure.
Yeah, in PPR, I'd still start Williams.
Would you start, assuming Alvin Kamara plays tonight, would you start Mark Ingram or Tony Pollard over Mike Williams?
Pollard.
I would start them both over Mike Williams.
Wow. Okay.
I'd start Williams over Ingram, I think.
Sit Jared Cook, sit CJ Uzama, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm finished with this game. Okay, let's go to Washington at Las Vegas. But first, let's go to commercial break. We'll be right back to talk about the football team and the Raiders. Washington at Las Vegas. I already asked you guys, which quarterback do you like better? You said Derek Carr. I am wondering how you can have faith in Derek Carr when you have a guy who has not had a good fantasy run since Henry Ruggs, since no more Henry Ruggs, doesn't most likely have Darren Waller this week. And now you got this stinking Mariota thing that could take away a touchdown like it may have last week when Mariota ran one in. So I was a little surprised at where I saw him in your rankings. I think he's top 12, right?
I think you look at the fact that the Washington football team has not just been the worst team against quarterbacks. They've given up 20% more fantasy points per game to quarterbacks than any other defense this year. And then you look at their last 2 weeks and you see Cam Newton has this fantastic first game back where he's a top 10 quarterback. And then the next week looks like the worst quarterback in the history of football. And Russell Wilson, who's maybe been the worst quarterback in the NFL the past 3 weeks, scores 23 fantasy points against them. It doesn't take a good situation or a good quarterback to be good against the Washington football team. It just takes a quarterback.
I would argue, if I were going to argue against that, I would say 3 weeks ago, they did very well against Tom Brady, held him to 16 points. The Cam game is inexcusable, but I think just watching the Monday Night Football game, it's not like I sat there and said, wow, Russell Wilson's carving them up. He had that late drive where he had half his points. So that would be my argument against it. They've gotten a lot better on third down.
But Russell missed so many throws, though. I mean, in terms of I'm not talking about missed throws that were intended targets. He missed wide open guys that he just didn't see.
Well, and I think, and it's tough to do the angles in your head and everything, but I think better throws to Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Lockett has like 180 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Both the times he threw to Lockett deep, Lockett didn't have anybody within 20 yards of him.
Okay. All right, then start Derek Carr.
Yeah, I know you say his fantasy production has been worse without Henry Ruggs, which is understandable. You lose a key player of your offense. But you did see some signs of Deshaun Jackson doing similar things in that game last week against the Cowboys. Downfield throws that some of those pass interference calls, if they're not, he's not getting tackled on the ones that were actually
They were
legit.
such bad throws, though.
Yeah, but it's also that could be a player too.
All right, but I would say that just knowing human nature, if Deshaun Jackson doesn't catch that ball and run however 30 yards, whatever it was for a touchdown, we're not starting Derek Carr this week because he would have had 15 points or something.
I mean, just for the numbers, he's 21 fantasy points or more in 4 of his last 6, so he's been fairly consistent for the season.
But no, I'm only looking at the games without Ruggs, and he's 11, 21, 10, and 21 in those games.
So half.
Yeah, but 11 and 10 in the other ones, and no Waller. I mean, that's the thing. No Waller. That's a big deal.
There hasn't been a whole lot of Waller lately.
No, that's not true. Waller had a.
Well, what did he do in the Philly game without Waller?
Against Dallas? Yeah, like he had a good
in the Philly game.
Well, Moreau had 6 for 60 in a touchdown. I don't know.
What did Derek Carr do in that game?
I don't know.
Oh, I'll look.
Yeah, he probably had a good game, but he had Ruggs.
I think Waller's been good in the games where Carr was bad, I guess.
He was 323, 2-1.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. I'm not okay.
I don't think Derek Carr is a slam dunk. I have to start Derek Carr to win my fantasy league this week.
Right.
But I don't think he's a bad starter. I'd start him over Burrow. I'd start him over Russell Wilson. I start him over Taysom Hill. That's where I come out on it. I like him. I don't love him.
Okay. Updated stat of the game every week. I'll give you this one. It keeps getting better and better. A tight end has 70 yards or a touchdown in 8 of the last 9 games against the Raiders. So I think that is one of the reasons why you like Logan Thomas. And you know what? Let's stick with the Raiders real quick since we had the Carr discussion. We'll come back to Logan Thomas in a moment. How do you feel about Josh Jacobs this week, Heath?
I'm starting him. Borderline number 1 running back, but definitely a good number 2 running back. And I would start him over both the running backs, all 4 of the running backs in tonight's game.
This matchup sucks, though. They are really good against the run. That doesn't.
Hopefully Josh Jacobs catches a bunch of passes.
Thankfully, he does. Okay. His 2 longest runs, by the way, of the year have come in the last 2 games. Hopefully, that's a good sign. Jamie, what do you think about Renfrow and Moreau?
I mean, Renfro's a must-start guy. You can't get away from what he's been for the season, really. It feels like people are just kind of waking up to Hunter Renfrow for the most part based on his start percentage. But, you saw, I think what hopefully can become without Darren Waller on the field, with some plays a little bit further down the field for him in the game against the Cowboys. The secondary is terrible, as we've noted. And so there's an opportunity here for him to continue to be 8 to 9 targets, 7 to 8 catches. He's the go-to guy for Derek Carr, understandably so. He's very reliable. He scored in 2 of his last 4, so hopefully that continues. And if he continues to find the end zone or goes over 100 yards, I don't know what more you need for a receiver at this point.
Okay, and then Moreau. Would you start Moreau over, say, Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz tonight?
Definitely over Schultz. I'm starting him over Kyle Pitts. I would start him over Dawson Knox. I would start him over Noah Fant. I think you're going to see 6+ targets and an opportunity here to be successful against a team that struggled against tight ends and certainly has a bad secondary to begin with.
Man, I have him behind, I think, every one of those guys, and with 0 amount of confidence. And the reason why, I've got Foster Moreau, Noah Fant, Gerald Everett, Logan Thomas, Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz, and Zach Ertz all projected for 6 targets. So 3 of those guys are probably going to score a touchdown and be top 12 tight ends this week, and 3 of those guys are not.
And for the Washington football team, do you like Antonio Gibson or Josh Jacobs this week?
Gibson, if there's no McKissick, for sure. Without McKissick, I've got Gibson as a top 12 running back. If McKissick's back, then Gibson's more of a number 2, but still a start.
Gibson's my favorite running back in this game, with or without McKissick.
He's just getting so much work lately, but they have won 3 games in a row, and he's had 24, 19, and 29 carries in 6 losses this year. He has 20 carries twice, but the other games are 12, 10, 14, and 8 carries. So, and usually he's a 3-catch guy. Last week was an exception.
How many red zone targets for Kyle Pitts this season?
2.
9.
Okay, sorry, green zone. How many green zone?
Looks like 9.
Kyle Pitts has 9 targets inside the 10-yard line?
No, he has 5. Sorry.
Huh.
How many red zone targets for Foster Moreau this season?
Red zone, 7.
Heath?
6.
4.
I win.
Part-time player versus full-time player. That's interesting.
Kind of true. And if you went Waller versus Pitts, that'd be something. Starter sit J.D. McKissic if he plays.
Waller has 11 red zone targets.
I would sit McKissic.
I would start McKissic in PPR as a flex.
McKissic or Mike Williams?
McKissic.
I'd probably go Mike Williams.
Terry McLaurin. Is it going to be one of his big games or one of his bad games?
His bad games aren't that bad.
They are 62 or fewer yards and no touchdowns 7 times in 11 games.
Yeah, I'm still starting.
Okay. Vegas allows the 6th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, but no Carl Nassib. That's a big deal. All right, then Logan Thomas or Foster Moreau? That's actually a good question. Should have asked that at the top. Logan Thomas or Foster Moreau?
Thomas, but it's close.
Thomas. And it's close.
Keep an eye on Thomas, though. He showed up on the injury report again on Wednesday.
Okay. And I'm finished with this game. Let's go to, I wonder how long that's going to last, how long that's going to be funny. Oh, no, I didn't talk about Heineke. I'm sorry. We have to talk about Taylor Heineke. Jamie, how do you feel about Heineke as a streamer?
I like him. Behind Taysom Hill, I would still start Burrow over him. I would still start Russell Wilson over him. It's funny because, and granted, he was robbed of the Logan Thomas touchdown, but in last week's game, he really only has one good game in this stretch of games. I think it's like one game over 17 fantasy points in his last 5 or so. So will he have this? Will he reach the ceiling? And with the run game playing as well as, with Antonio Gibson and the run game doing as well as it is, it's hard to necessarily think that that's going to be the case because they should be able to run on the Raiders. So,
yeah. You know why it is, Jamie? He has 0 or 1 touchdown in 6 of his last 7 games. He either has like a 3 touchdown game or a 0 or 1. He almost always has 1 touchdown pass. It's killing his fantasy numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's the byproduct of teams becoming better.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to.
So like if you still have the opportunity, like I like Tua better this week and Taysom Hill better of the streaming guys.
Okay. Let's go to Baltimore at Pittsburgh. In their last 3 games, the Ravens gave up 16 points to Miami. To their offense. Miami made a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. 16 points to the Dolphins offense, 13 points at Chicago, 10 points against Cleveland. Now, is that because the teams they faced stunk? Yeah, there's mostly Jacoby Brissett. And
where do those offenses rank in relation to the current Pittsburgh Steelers?
I mean, it's hard to say because was it Dalton or was it Fields? I think, they knocked Brissett out of the game and they knocked Fields out of the game. And then last week, the Browns are just such a shell of themselves right now. And Pittsburgh, meanwhile, has allowed 41 points in back-to-back games. And what's the deal with the Pittsburgh defense? So in terms of Watt, Hayden, are they both? Hayden's back, right?
I'm not sure. I'll check.
Okay.
But I don't think, as of right now, we're not expecting Watt, but I think he could be cleared.
He's on the reserve COVID list. Okay.
Joe Hayden did not practice.
All right. So we'll keep an eye on that.
This is one of those games, like everything that I think matters and is predictive tells me that the Ravens should just blow the Steelers out. The Steelers season should be over after this game. But it's at Pittsburgh and it's a division game. And so they'll probably find some way. Mike Tomlin will probably find a way to keep it close and they might even sneak out a victory. But looking at the matchup on paper, the Steelers don't deserve to be in this game.
I probably say this every time these two teams play. This is my favorite football rivalry. I freaking love. Yeah, I love it. I don't know how much longer that's going to last because the Steelers are painful, but yeah, I love this game. Very excited. All right, here's the stat of the game. The Steelers have allowed 10 touchdowns to running backs, all since week 6. Their first 5 games, they didn't allow 1. And now they allow rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns to running backs all the time. So we've talked about, the Patriots guys. Who else? Guys like Mike Williams, T. Higgins. Jamie, where is Devontae Freeman in the flex list?
I would start him over Williams. I would start him over Pollard and Ingram tonight. Trying to think. I start him over Higgins. So he's at the top of the list, I think.
A good like he's one of two things in your lineup. He's either a really bad number 2 running back or a great flex.
His best game since Latavius Murray has returned has been without Lamar Jackson. I think it's 2 or 3 games. So it's not a big sample size. It was when Tyler Huntley started and threw him the ball.
Right. But didn't he have 16 carries last week too?
Yeah, I'm just saying in terms of fantasy production.
Yes, right. He had 6 catches in that game, right? And
so
then
I think, you mentioned that the Steelers, and their struggles, the Ravens offense looked terrible against the Browns. And, Lamar Jackson said he played like a rookie. I think the offensive line is a bit of a concern still, even if there is no TJ Watt. They just haven't been playing well because of injuries. So, you're obviously starting Lamar Jackson. You're starting Marquise Brown. He has a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 against Pittsburgh. And Freeman and Andrews, and Andrews obviously, and Freeman is in the flex conversation. But I don't know where the ceiling is for all these guys. Hopefully we get the ceiling for Lamar and Andrews and Brown because they're must starts. But it looked bad. It looked bad against Cleveland.
That said, Jackson is a top 3 quarterback for everyone. Rashad Bateman.
Well, that's again, you asked the question about Herbert. It's a reflection of the quarterback position this week.
Right. I always have so much confidence in Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Most weeks he doesn't justify it, but I always expected.
I had him number 1 last week.
Yeah, I think Dave did too.
I think I have him number 1 right now.
Yeah.
I moved him up.
Okay. So Bateman and Claypool, I guess, because we'll talk Freiermuth in a second. Nobody's starting Ben. I know Najee Harris. It's not a good matchup, but I think most people are going to start Najee Harris. So, Claypool and Bateman. Heath, talk about these 2 wide receivers.
Claypool, I like quite a bit more than Bateman. I would view him as a number 3 wide receiver, number 2 wide receiver, even borderline number 2, right in that Lockett, Metcalf, Cooper range. But I would actually start him over those 3. Bateman is a boom bust flex for me.
Okay. Do we want to talk about Najee Harris? Is it worth it? Because I think, Heath, you said you'd start Jamaal Williams.
There's a lot of guys who you wouldn't think that we would be like. You're starting Alexander Madison over him. I'd start Leonard Fournette over him. I'd start James Conner, Antonio Gibson, Jamaal Williams, Mitchell, Cordero. But he's still a top 15 running back, so I'm still starting him.
Pat Freiermuth, if he's cleared, is he going to be ahead or behind Logan Thomas and Foster Moreau?
Behind Thomas, ahead of Moreau.
He's going to be right in that group of 6 target tight ends. I like what Jamie said. I'll just say that.
All right. And the Ravens DST is in play this week. So, start them. Giants at Dolphins, the spotlight game. Dolphins have allowed 17 or fewer points in 4 straight games, all wins. The Giants have allowed 20 or fewer points in 4 of their last 5 games. And 30 points at Tampa Bay. They may be without one of their best defensive players, Adoree Jackson. But these 2 defenses are playing very well. And, it's something to keep in mind. Probably a low-scoring game. Stat of the game, the Dolphins, Jamie alluded to this. The Dolphins in their last 5 games, 3.64 yards per carry to running backs, no touchdowns. The competition was not great until McCaffrey, who left with an injury, but it was Buffalo, Houston, Baltimore, the Jets, and Carolina.
So a few guys are better than the second one.
Yeah, the 5 teams that are better than the Giants rushing game.
That is a bad list of running backs.
It is going to continue. I mean, how much confidence do you have? Heath, you seem to have more confidence in Barkley, but you like him better with Glennon.
Right. I like him better with Glennon. I do think Michael Carter played a third of that game against the Dolphins and had 9 carries for 63 yards. So he was on a pretty good run before that happened. I don't remember how much McCaffrey played before he got hurt.
He had 10 carries.
Yeah, I'm probably just starting Saquon Barkley, even if Daniel Jones is starting. But he's a number 2 running back, and all those guys that I said I would start over Najee Harris, I'd start over Saquon as well.
So I have Barkley in one league where I also have Sony Michel. And we get to the weekend, and Darrell Henderson's out, that's an easy call for me.
Right.
So I think we keep referencing the quarterback list. The running back list is also a little tricky because you have Najee Harris in a tough spot. You have Saquon Barkley in a tough spot. You're down obviously McCaffrey, and you're down. Well, McCaffrey wouldn't play. You're down Dalvin Cook. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Madison just slots right in, but it's
down Nick Chubb.
It's a weird week, and you have guys like Jamaal Williams, and if there is a solo starter in Philadelphia, those guys I think are, and if Sony Michel starts over Henderson, those guys are in probably better spots than Barkley right now.
And James Conner would be an easy one over Barkley, right?
James Conner's an easy one. Elijah Mitchell's an easy one for me.
What if Miles Sanders plays?
I would probably still put Barkley ahead, certainly in PPR, because you just don't know how the splits will go in Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah. All right. How about a Giants wide receiver? Any interest here?
0.
Not really, no. Golladay for me is in that Mike Williams, T. Higgins range.
Okay. And Evan Ingram is a sit. I haven't even looked at the rankings, but I know Evan Ingram is a sit. Tua. Let's talk about Tua. 61% rostered. So he is, he's perfect for this matchup because the Giants don't give up big pass plays and he doesn't throw downfield. He has the second lowest intended air yards per pass attempt among qualified quarterbacks. Only Jared Goff throws the ball shorter than Tua Tagovailoa on average.
Did you see the NFL on CBS tweet about Tua and Kyler Murray through their first career 16 starts?
No.
Tua has a better touchdown interception ratio, a better completion percentage, a better passer rating, and a better win-loss record.
He's been great.
Well, he's been great in a Mac Jonesian way.
Well, he's been great from a playing standpoint. He hasn't been great from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, I know, but people dog on Mac Jones because he never throws the ball downfield, really. But Tua is even worse than that. So
there it is. Good job, Schrager.
Yeah, Shraggy B. All right, there's the graphic. Yeah, that means nothing to me, by the way. But
I mean, he's been a better passer than Kyler Murray was as a rookie. But Kyler's a much better runner and better fantasy quarterback.
This is Kyler's rookie season, and this is Tua's rookie and sophomore season. It's a little deceiving.
First 16 games.
Sure, but he's not a rookie. He's had 2.
Should have Azer statted a little bit and removed some of those games.
I guess he's had 1 training camp because of COVID. No, he had 2 training camps. He had 1 preseason. Anyway.
Who'd you take right now, Tua or Daniel Jones?
I'd take Jacoby Brissett over Daniel Jones.
That's not true.
Wow.
I'd take Tua for sure. Anyway, yeah. Do we like him this week, Heath?
He is right between Taysom Hill and Taylor Heineke for me. The 3 T's are the streamers this week. I would start Taysom over him, but I would start Tua over Heineke, and I would start Tua over Burrow.
Yeah, Jamie, final thought on Tua?
I agree with everything he said. I probably just stick with Burrow, though. But in terms of Taysom, Tua, and Taylor, I agree.
Do you more or less feel the same way about Myles Gaskin as you do about Barkley? I know Jamie likes Gaskin better and Heath likes Barkley better, but are they in the same range?
You're starting them probably.
Yeah, they're in the same range. I think you just got to start to buy into what Gaskin's been doing in terms of his work, finding the end zone twice last week. I think he scored down 3 of his last 4. The opportunity is there against this Giants defense with probably the amount of times the ball will be in the Dolphins' hands. You have to worry a little bit about this comment from Brian Flores about Philip Lindsay to whatever extent it goes, but I can't imagine that Myles Gaskin, in terms of his role in the passing game, will change. And then is he going to lose the goal line opportunities? It's not like Philip Lindsay's a big back that's going to come and take him off the field. They're very similar in stature. So,
right.
I think Myles Gaskin's role is kind of locked in as at least, 80% of where it's been. If Philip Lindsay takes, 20% of what Gaskin's been doing, that's maybe something that's fair. But I'm not worried about Philip Lindsay ruining Myles Gaskin right now.
And Jalen Waddle, layup, must start.
Superstar.
Dunk.
What if Parker plays?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. Would Jalen Waddle be this good if he had the other 2 guys on the field?
I would say no.
I would agree.
Yeah. And I feel really dumb about that because on the Sunday night show, I was like, don't even ask about Jalen Waddle anymore. He's a must start. But you do have to take in the Parker. I mean, I don't know when the hell Fuller's going to be back. I don't know when Parker's going to be back.
I think he's still a must-start guy, but I just don't know if he'd be getting this many targets and having this much success if he's, getting the competition from those other guys. I think it would actually help Mike Gesicki if Devontae Parker's back, because then he could play more of a tight end role as opposed to playing a wide receiver role.
And actually, I want to look this up right now, but I think Waddle has been on the outside a lot more the last 3 games. And that's probably better for him because it gives him a little bit more of a chance for big plays. But if Parker and Fuller come back, his slot percentage has dropped. 2 weeks ago, he only played 13 snaps there. Yeah, I would say he's been more outside than previously. All right. Anyway, if Parker plays, if Devontae Parker plays, would you start Parker or Mike Williams?
Still Mike Williams, but I mean, the fact that we have to say that tells you where Mike Williams is. Not that it's not being disrespectful to Parker, but a guy just stepping onto the field for the first time in over a month. That just shows you how bad Mike Williams has been.
All right. Would you go Parker or Barkley?
Barkley.
Would you go Waddle or Barkley?
Waddle.
I hope he scores. I enjoyed the Waddle end zone celebration.
Some of the comments I saw, I think Tua called it a little bird. And Christian Wilkins, I think, said, with a name like Waddle, you get to go Waddle. So he gets to.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah.
Miami's DST is top 7. Gesicki, though, he's so frustrating. It's like, gosh,
They're playing him at wide receiver. It stinks.
Yeah. Well, that's not good because the Giants are decent against wide receivers, not as good against tight ends. So what do you think about Gesicki, Heath?
I don't really. That's how I feel about him. It's driving me crazy, this group of tight ends. I'm still starting him over Foster Moreau. I'm still starting him over Noah Fant. I would start him, but I'm still starting Zach Ertz and Kyle Pitts over Mike Gesicki. But I think you could take tight ends 7 through 15 in our rankings and just jumble them up into one of those things and pull out the little lottery balls and rank them that way if you want to.
Okay. Denver's at Kansas City. So, stat of the game, Denver has lost 5 games this season. In those 5 games, neither Melvin Gordon nor Javonte Williams has had more than 11 carries. When they win, they get a ton of work. When they lose, they do not. And, are they going to make it up in the passing game? Well, between the two of them, they have 1 game with more than 3 catches. That was Javonte Williams had a 6-catch game at Cleveland. So they got to stay in this game against Kansas.
And I think that's the thing with both the running backs and Noah Fant in this game. The matchup is pretty fantastic for pass-catching running backs, for pass-catching tight ends, for running backs in general. But, man, it's hard to imagine those guys all having a good game too.
So the matchup is toughest for the wide receivers, right?
Right.
So we're just sitting them?
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Judy's the best one, and he's a number 3 receiver, better in PPR. You just can't look at what Sutton has done with Judy on the field. It's just been a disaster for him. And so, and Patrick is just too much of a wild card at this point. So, you know what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and run.
Would you start Judy or Van Jefferson?
Van. And Beckham.
Judy or Cooper?
Cooper.
Judy or Kendrick Bourne or Jacoby Myers?
I would start Bourne in non-PPR over Judy, and I would start Myers over Judy in PPR.
Okay.
And I hate saying it.
Heath, where's Fant with Gesicki?
He's behind all of them. Even though I hate it because it's the Chiefs and he'll probably score a touchdown. But the way they're using him right now, it's almost like he's the pass catching running back and they just dump it off to him in the line of scrimmage. And he's not making a lot of people miss. So I've got him 14th or 15th, depending on the format. I'd start Logan Thomas over him. I'd start Gesicki over him.
Do you in dynasty leagues try and buy Broncos at this point with the hope of Aaron Rodgers going there?
I think you should buy Broncos in the passing game. And I don't know if you can buy Javonte Williams because his perceived value is so much higher than his actual production. But yes, I would buy Fant. I would buy Judy. I think I'd even buy Sutton.
For the record, Heath, this is Javonte Williams week, right?
I'm pretty sure Javonte Williams week was last week.
Okay. No, but how do you compare Javonte, Melvin Gordon, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Let's talk about the running backs in this game. Is Clyde clearly ahead of them?
I feel the most comfortable with him at this point, yes, but it's no slam dunk.
Yeah, I've got Clyde and Darrell still pretty close, but I would go Melvin, Clyde, Javonte.
It's a really bad run defense. It's a very good defense, but they have had so many struggles against the run.
But they've been better lately. That's the problem.
Yeah, they have.
Jones going back inside is big for them.
They were not better against the Eagles, but nobody has been really. They have been better lately. All right.
You're talking about Denver. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm talking about Denver.
Yes, Denver's run defense has been better lately. Yes,
but still overall pretty bad.
Yes, and you just it's. I think what will end up happening is you asked about like the blowout, right? I think you.
It's going to be competitive, yeah.
Competitive game, yes. So I think it'll be competitive. Denver's defense has played really well, but it's almost like when the wave is coming and you're just expecting it at some point it's going to overwhelm them. I think the Chiefs at some point will start to pull ahead, and how much will they lean on either Clyde or Darrell Williams in that capacity? So Darrell Williams has been largely disappointing when Clyde's been healthy.
Oh yeah, Williams, you need the goal line touchdown. He gets almost no work.
He had one.
He had two, I think. I think he had ones in week 2 and 4. Yeah, but yeah, still, I mean, it's a prayer. And then last week, or last game, 2 weeks ago, it was Clyde who was in that situation and he scored.
Yeah, it cost him some money too.
Clyde or Barkley?
Barkley,
but it's close. Yeah, you're right. Darrell had two touchdowns. One of them, though, was against Baltimore, where he had 3 carries for -2 yards.
So Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes must starts, and that's pretty much it for this game. We should probably do a little bit more. You like Melvin Gordon better than Javonte, right?
I do.
Slightly. I would love, and I don't want to see guys get hurt, but he's on the injury report right now. Melvin Gordon didn't practice on Wednesday again. He got a little bit dinged up in the game last week. I think a lot of people, when we saw Melvin Gordon go down, I think it might have been the first carry. It was definitely first quarter. Oh no, but okay, let's go Javonte Williams. It'd be nice to see one of these guys just have an opportunity to be the featured guy.
Right, yeah, either one. I mean, they run the ball a lot and effectively. So, yeah, I'm not going to root for an injury. I'm not changing.
Yeah, nobody's rooting for an injury, but it happened.
It does happen. Gordon's been on the injury report so much this year, and he never misses the game. All right, so let's go to that's it for this game. Chiefs DST is top 12. They've been very good lately, and they're only 38% rostered. So if you need a DST, you can look at them. 2 more games: Patriots at Bills. It's hard to come up with a stat of the game. I mean, these are arguably the 2 best defenses in football. You're not going to have Tre'Davious White though, so we'll see what kind of impact that has. And I have a feeling it's basically just start Allen, start Diggs, and then Dawson Knox. I think that's maybe the toughest one. So my stat of the game was just that the Patriots allowed the second fewest fantasy points to tight ends. Heath, you toss it and turn it, not figuring out how to rank Dawson Knox?
I just decided as we were having this discussion, I've got these 17 tight ends in a group that I don't know how to rank. I'm going to move the one facing the Patriots to the back of the line. So Dawson Knox now behind Foster Moreau, behind Logan Thomas, behind Noah Fant, behind Gerald Everett, tight end 15. I'm sitting Dawson Knox with conviction.
And it's not the second best, Adam. It's the best. They're the best at defending tight ends.
Really?
Yes.
Are they tied for first?
I don't know. On our site, they're first.
Okay. Because sometimes when they're tied and you go to like Dawson Knox's player page, for example, I have the Cardinals as number 1. Oh, that's so weird, though.
Are we looking at, is that because our when you just look at the points allowed on our site, it's non-PPR. Are you in a PPR league looking at that?
It's in a PPR league. They are first.
You know what's weird? They are first in non-PPR. Oh, no. Okay, they're second in non-PPR. The Cardinals are first. That's what it is.
Yeah.
All right. But they give up 3.5 fantasy points per game in non-PPR to tight ends.
Yeah, 6.5 in PPR. They've given 3 touchdowns to the position.
Is there anything tricky in this game here? Like you want to talk about Bourne and Myers, and it's just Harris and Stevenson. All right. Let's talk about the Patriots, Jamie. Break it down.
I think, I asked you this question yesterday, both of you, and it's just an interesting stat that the Bills have allowed 8 rushing touchdowns on the season, and 7 of them have come to 2 guys. Derrick Henry scored 3 times. Jonathan Taylor scored 4 times, and Michael Carter found the end zone against them as the other running back to score. So Harris has scored once in the 2 games since coming back from his concussion, when Stevenson 3 games ago against Cleveland had the 20 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both have been largely disappointing in the passing game. I think they've combined for 3 catches over the last 2 weeks. So you don't have that factor to sort of fall back on. And I just wonder if, knowing how big this game is, how much does Bill Belichick trust his rookie? So does Stevenson get more work, less work? He looked more explosive than Harris last week. But does that continue? So I lean slightly toward Harris in this game. I would try to avoid Stevenson, who again has been disappointing the last 2 weeks with Harris on the field. But which run defense for Buffalo shows up? Is the one that was great all season long, or is the one that when you run at them, and we know that's what probably the Patriots are going to do, they've struggled with 2 of the best running backs in football, and that's really it. But those are the 2 teams that ran right at them.
One of those 2 games, they did not have Star Lotulelei. He is back. He is off the COVID list, missed the last 3 games. He's probably their best run stuffer, and that was the Jonathan Taylor game. Jonathan Taylor went, and Michael Carter too, actually. So 2 of the 3 running backs who scored did it without Star Lotulelei. He's coming back for the Buffalo Bills.
I would really like it because, this is the Monday night game, and this is a very important game for fantasy managers trying to get into the playoffs, or in some leagues already beginning certain levels of the playoffs. I feel much better if my opponent has players in this game that he's counting on than if I have players in this game that I'm counting on.
Absolutely. What about Diggs? You think he's going to have a good game?
I don't think it,
you're starting him, I know.
You can't sit him. I don't really think he's going to have a good game. No, but he might get in the end zone. He might have 5 for 70, but no, I don't really think anyone's going to have a good game.
Josh Allen?
I don't think so. He did score 40 fantasy points against the Patriots last week in week 16. I'm not sure if you should count that game in the Josh Allen versus Bill Belichick history, just because it wasn't exactly a typical Bill Belichick defense by week 16 of last year. But you're starting Josh Allen, you're starting Stephon Diggs, but I hope you don't have to win this game if they're one of your best players.
The last time we saw him in a big game like this, prime time, right, was against the Chiefs.
Yeah, he was terrific.
He was terrific. Look, the Patriots defense, I don't want to take anything away from them. You got to look at the opponents that they've played. It hasn't exactly been murderer's row, in terms of offenses that they've, shut down.
No, but Brady scored 10 points. Herbert scored 16. Prescott.
Brady was in the rain, and
yeah.
I've already gotten one tweet about it, and I don't worry about weather this far in advance. But there is some talk that they may have 25, 30 mile an hour winds and a snowstorm during Monday Night Football.
Oh, please. I love it.
It would be fantastic.
I love it. I can't wait for this game. It's so awesome.
Who's the better team?
I suspect Buffalo is, but they have actually played a really easy schedule this year.
That's another thing. Yeah. They haven't played anybody either.
Yeah.
And I kind of think the bad weather might, it should favor the team with the veteran quarterback, but I kind of think it might favor the Patriots. I could see Belichick convincing his team that, bad weather just works to our advantage.
Well, their best player is probably Nick Folk, so might work against them. All right. No interest in the Bills running backs?
No, but I would imagine the way that the Patriots approach this is play back, put a lot of defensive backs on the field, and say, we'll lose if Matt Breida and Devin Singletary beat us.
I think Singletary is a good flex.
Okay.
I wonder if Breida's the better play, though. Like, Singletary's going to get more touches, I would think, but Breida just looks so much better.
You trying to get away from the DSTs in this game?
That's the funny thing, because this is Mac Jones' biggest spot, right? Monday Night Football. He had the moment already against Brady, but now it's the next moment. To establish yourself back as the team in the division and on the road, bad weather.
Well,
will he falter? Who knows?
Yeah. How much different is the Bills' pass defense without Tre'Davious White?
But against this team, though, it doesn't matter because it's not like they're going to be, downfield throws, especially if the weather's bad.
Yeah.
They'll still dink and dunk their way down the field.
All right. So you'd start the Dolphins DSTs over them?
Easy. Yeah.
Vikings?
That's the one I struggle with is Minnesota. Because that's the other thing, in terms of Patriots defense, like if this team is as good as it's played, which, again, I don't want to take anything away from them. We've seen Josh Allen now struggle. He faced an improved Jacksonville defense. And how bad was he in that game?
Right.
And he struggled against Colts.
Yes, he did. All right. Speaking of the Colts, they are at Houston. So let's just knock out Houston real quick. Only player.
Talking, we almost might get to Sunday when that game kicks off.
I haven't really. I think I'm enjoying the heck out of this show. Only player that's interesting here on Houston's Cooks, right?
Yes.
All right. So Cooks or Pittman?
Cooks.
Ooh. I think I have Pittman higher, but neither of them in my top 24.
Is Jonathan Taylor the only great start in this game?
Yes. Colts DST is pretty good.
Yeah.
So Wentz, I mean, I know you guys. Who was it last week that you were excited about against Houston? No, 2 weeks ago maybe. Tannehill.
Tua.
No,
Tua played the Jets.
It was Tannehill a couple weeks ago, and he was horrible, and they lost that game.
That was last.
Wentz is like the number 4 streamer this week, so we're not going to use him.
Okay, because he just might do what he did last time and throw 20 times and score 21 points or something.
I mean, all you're hearing out of Indianapolis is how much they didn't run the ball against the Bucs.
Right. Okay, they're going to run the ball this week. So, yeah.
Michael, get Jonathan Taylor the MVP game.
Would you? Dave is very high on Michael Pittman. I have to ask him about that tomorrow. Would you start Pittman or Barkley?
Barkley.
Barkley. I mean, the thing about Pittman's matchup is great. The Texans secondary is terrible. So it's just opportunities. Clearly, it's just opportunities.
And the T.Y. Hilton thing.
Right.
Like, I know it's a joke, kind of, but also.
Yeah, he kills them every time. So I'll do a few more Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman or Bills, Patriots, Broncos running back.
Pittman and PPR over all those guys. Non-PPR, I'll take Harris.
Sure. Jack
Doyle is a desperation guy who you could see having a good game.
Yeah, he's been good in like 2 of his last 3.
On the injury report, though, so just keep that in mind.
And that's it for this game. No David Johnson, Rex Burkhead.
I mean, you got to be so desperate for those guys.
I mean, I feel like you have to be. I don't feel this way, but based on the way he's produced, you'd have to be desperate for Brandon Cooks. He's been terrible, but he's always capable of having a big game.
Garbage time, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, the Colts give up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers.
Just
yes,
something real quick, because sometimes I like to keep an eye on Twitter while we're on the show, and to make sure we don't miss any breaking news, and I want to make sure that that's not something is happening. Nope, we're good.
Okay, no, I think you're right. RJ White dropped Zane Gonzalez and added Evan McPherson. I did see that come across my phone as well. So there you go. Kicker news for you. We are out of here. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow with the NFC home game.